So good morning everyone. Welcome to this lesson. It's all about the definite integral as the limit of Riemann sums. So definite integral for each sub-intervals k, we have the definition first. K starts from 1 up to n. Let x sub k be any point in the kth sub-interval, yung rectangle natin, where x of k minus 1 to k. Then the Riemann sum defined by the choice of points relative to the point P or the partition P. So yung partition natin is dependent on the number of rectangles that we want. So that is f of x sub 1 times change in x plus f of x sub 2 times change in x and up to f of x sub n times change in x. So we factor change in x, and this one is f of x sub k, where k starts from 1 to n, times change in x. Ito po yung ating Riemann sum of the right sum of the areas. In any case, we know that the above Riemann sum is only the approximation of the exact area of R. To make this exact estimated or estimate exact, we let n approach infinity. Why? Because kasi the more rectangles we have, the more na maging smooth ang ating curve. It means as n goes to positive infinity or n approach infinity, that means yung remaining triangles doon sa taas ng curve at saka ng ating rectangle can be viewed as a smooth curve or approaches to the curve na. This limit of the Riemann sum is what we call the definite integral of f over the closed interval AB, where A is the initial and B is the last or the boundary. So the limit of this Riemann sum as the x approaches infinity, where our x start for the number of triangles. If this limit exists, the value of this integral does not depend on the kind, whether that is left, right, or midpoint or Riemann sum being used. They have the same result. So example, we have to show that using the Riemann sum that the integral of 3x plus 1 dx, where the boundary is from 1 to positive 3, is equivalent to 14, using the definition of the definite integral as limit of a sum. So let us first get to the right. So ang right natin, of course, automatic that our f of x equals 3x plus 1, where our a is 1 and our b is 3, and we have an n sub-intervals because we don't know what is n as n goes to positive infinity later on. So in general, we take n sub-intervals as a general form. So change in x, the formula of this is b minus a over n. So ang b natin ay 3 minus a is 1 over n, where n is the number of sub-intervals, that is 2 over n. This is our change in x. That means this is the length or the length of each rectangle. Then x sub k is equals to, kasi alam natin ang x sub k, yung ating first rectangle, that is x sub 1. Second rectangle is x sub 2. So alam natin ang first rectangle is the initial, which is the x sub o plus the first 1 times change in x. Then x sub 2 is equals x sub o plus 2 times change in x. X sub 3 is equals x sub o plus 3 times change in x. So if that is x sub k, that is equivalent to x sub o plus k times change in x. Ang alam natin na ang x sub o plus k times change in x is equal to 1 plus k times 2 over n. Why? Because ang ating x sub o is 1. Okay? Ang ating k is still k. Ang change in x natin ay 2 over n. So by substitution, where x sub o is 1 and our k is k and our change in x is 2 over n, we multiply numerator with the 2k over n. That is 1 plus 2k over n. That is our x sub k. That is the random point or number in the x-axis. Yun yung sinabi sa Riemann sum na concept sa introduction, that we can pick a random number in the x-axis or the length of the rectangle. So we write the r sub n, that is the sum of the areas below the curve 3x plus 1, where that is equivalent to the summation of f of x sub k times change in x sub k, where k starts from 1 to n. And we know that f of x sub k is equivalent to 3x sub k plus 1. Why? Because we write x sub k because this x sub k is the number of rectangles. And we have now the 3x sub k, that is x sub o, or we have 1 plus 2kn. So this is 3 times 1 plus 2k over n plus 1. And our change in x sub k is equivalent to 2 over n. So by substitution, we have that. And we multiply 3 times 1 plus 6k over n plus 1, kasi ang 3 dito lang siya i-distribute. That is 3 plus 1, that is 4, and then plus 6k over n times 2 over n. And then we multiplied 4 times 2, that is 8 over n. Then 6k times 2, that is 12k, and n times n is equals to n squared. Kindly correct, that is n squared. By applying properties of the summation, that we know that the summation of 1, where k starts from 1 to n, is equal to n. Why? Because 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 up to n, that is 1 times n. And summation of k, as k starts from 1 to n, so for example 1 plus 2 plus 3 and so on, that is equivalent to the first, which is 1, plus the last times the middle. So for example, we want to add 1 to 10. Ang ginawa natin is we add 1 and 10, that is 11. Then we paired 11, how many pairs? 1 and 10, 1 pair, 9 and 2, that is 1 pair, 3 and 8, and that is 11, still another pair, then 6 and 5, that's another pair. So ang mangyayari, that is 10 divided 2, there are 5 pairs, or that is the last divided by 2, that is our. So ito yung ating equation, that the first plus n times n over 2, or the number of pairs. So this is the sum, and this is the sum also. So by simplifying this one, that this 8 over n can be factored, ang maiwan yan ay 1, so that is 1, plus yung 12 over n squared can be factored, and summation of k, where k starts from 1 to n. And we know that this one is equal to n, that is equivalent to n, so ay dito na. And then this one is n times n plus 1 over 2, that is 12 over n squared times n plus 1 over 2. Then by cancellation, we've got 8. And then by cancellation, you've got n. So n na lang dito kasi factored yung n. This is 12 over n squared. That is 12 over 2. That is 6. So that is 6 times n plus 1 over n. And then by distributing 6, you've got 8 plus 6n over n plus 6 over n. And you have cancelled, that is 8 plus 6 plus 6 over n is equals to 14 plus 6 over n. This is the using the Riemann sum. Now we are going to show that the summation, the integral of 3x plus 1 dx is equal to 14 using the definition of a definite integral. So finally, by definition, integral of 3x plus 1 dx is equals to the limit of Rn as n goes to positive infinity. That the limit of any number where n goes to infinity and that n is a denominator, we know that 1 over n, this one is approaching to 0. Why? Because as n gets larger and larger, the value of this is approaching to 0. Therefore, the limit of this is equal to 0. So that is 8 plus 6 plus 1 over n. And 1 over n, the limit of that as n goes to infinity is equal to 0. You've got 14 plus 6 times 0 equals 14. Therefore, it follows that the integral of 3x plus 1 dx from 1 to 3 is equal to 14. Now you have your activity. You have to use the definite integral as a limit of the Riemann sum to find the area of the region bounded by y equals x squared, y equals 0, and x equals 1, and x equals 2. It means ang ating a ay 1, ang ating b ay 2. Ito yung ating a at saka b. And then ang ating graph, y equals x squared doon. And then y equals 0, this is the equation of the x-axis. So therefore, we're going to find the area of the region bounded by the y equals x squared and the x-axis with a1 and a2. So, ilang partition gusto ninyo? You can use the n sub-intervals. Then use the definition of the definite integral as the limit of the Riemann sum to show that the integral of 0 to 1x cubed dx is equals to 1/4. So, how to do that one? Ganon din yung ginawa natin kanina. Yung maghanap tayo ng chains in x, and we are going to find a is 0 and b is 1 and n is n subintervals. So that's it.